I'm wanting you to ask for help for self-care reasons so that you aren't doing too much, that you can ask others to take stuff off your plate to help you, to support you. And why is that important? Why is it important to take care of ourselves? Well, you can't sustainably do everything yourself. It's just not sustainable. And you can't be more efficient when there's just so much stuff. Hey, it's Samantha Hartley of the Profitable Joyful Consulting Podcast. This season, we're talking about empowering women. And one of the things that I think is the main big way we can empower women is to make it okay for them to ask for help. And that's what I wanted to talk about today, asking for help. How do we ask for help? Why is it so hard to do that? And how can we do so without destroying credibility, destroying our reputation, making ourselves feel weak, making others think that we're too weak or vulnerable, needy by asking for help? That's all of the stories that we tell ourselves about why we shouldn't ask for help. You know, you don't want to look bad. You don't want to look like you can't handle it. And because of that, I think most women I work with are so incredibly powerful. Like they're these one-woman machines who can just do practically everything. Have families, run businesses, be the rainmaker, run the whole operation, do all of the pieces of it. And that is fabulous, but you're going to get yourself to a point beyond which you can't really grow. So we have to be able to ask others for help. You have to be able to delegate. You have to be able to let loose of pieces of control. And I specifically today wanted to talk not about asking for help, like delegating or getting more advice or asking for mentorship or things like that. But I want to talk about how to ask for help in letting go of control, like having someone help you to do things so that you're doing less. And part of the reason I got this idea of, I was brainstorming topics for this season, and this one came to me, and then I've been researching it for several days, and I've come across things that you can ask for help with, and it's like, well, here's the advice. You can ask someone for this advice and that advice and this input and things like that. And I'm like, yeah, we don't need more ideas usually. What we need are like hands and like physical participation. So I also in my research came across this idea of the Enneagram 2, and I want to share with you something that's typical of that particular Enneagram type. Before I do, just a quick background. Last season, I did an interview with Stephen Van Cleek on the Enneagram in general. It's one of these personality typing things. It happens to be a really old one, and my friend group and family began to take a deep dive into the Enneagram. And so we're really, really into it, and we're studying our own types and how to understand yourself better and how to work with others. And in doing so, I have learned a lot about the individual types. So Enneagram 2s in particular are a type that hates to ask for help. And this was in the description of them, and it really caught my attention. 2s rarely ask for help, at least not directly, and they don't know how to receive it when it's offered. Ask them what they need and how you can support them, and you'll get it back tenfold. They don't know how to receive it when it's offered. Now, that is not a description of an Enneagram 2 to me. That is a description of so many women I know. I mean, so many women. As you heard that, you might even have thought, I don't really know how to ask for help. And would you know how to receive it when it was offered? I remember years ago, I had a dear friend, this is a woman I love, and she was helping me with the tag, and my shirt was out, and she was kind of fixing it, and I realized she was kind of mothering me, and I was like, I didn't have like a receptor for that. I was like, what are you doing? Like, thank you, but like, what? And in general, a lot of times I would notice in retrospect that people had offered me help and had been trying to help me. And I'm so independent that I would be like, I don't even know what you're doing right now. So I'm not good at this, or I'm getting better at it. I'm like a recovering person who doesn't know how to ask for help, but this is not a thing I was born with. And it's not big in my family. So growing up, I had a fiercely independent family. And they're very much people who had been let down by everybody. And so they were like, by God, we'll never rely on anybody again. And so we were very much this kind of like self-functioning, self-sufficient little family system. Not a lot of relatives, not a lot of asking on anybody, friend groups outside of the family. So they were very self-sufficient, my parents. And so we grew up in that atmosphere of like, don't rely on anyone else. And I remember my mother saying, once I learned to drive, she was like, you always are the driver. You always drive yourself anywhere. Then you'll never have to rely on anybody else for a ride home. You're always in control. You're always in power. And I think self-sufficiency is a great and very important thing to learn, especially as women, because you need to know how to take care of yourself, but you don't need to learn never depend on anyone else, never rely on anyone else because they're fundamentally unreliable. So that's kind of a double-edged sword. And I think my family took it to a fault. We took independence to a fault and self-sufficiency to a fault. And again, I don't think we're unusual because when I see my clients and when I see so many of the women that I work with and I encounter in my work, I see that kind of fierce independence. And that can look like the inability to delegate or to let go of parts of the business that you need to let go of so that you can grow and be larger and more successful. Like you have to be able to relinquish parts of the work so that you can rise above it. So my family was basically just terrible at receiving. And that is not good. It's not good on an individual level, but it's not good on a societal level because as a society, we need to be interdependent. We have to, there's a fabric of society where we all kind of like rely on each other. This is what makes the country work. So just as that like self-sufficiency makes America work, also like this reliance on one another makes our country work. And I would think all the other countries out there, because this is what makes humans succeed. Johann Hari has a wonderful TED Talk about addiction. And his idea is that addiction isn't a disease or a brain issue or a character flaw. He thinks it's about social isolation. And I'm not an expert on it, but what I do know is that social isolation doesn't help anyone. As we saw during the pandemic, it really, some introverts thrived in that environment, but for a lot of people, it was too much isolation and it was harmful. And it probably did harm to a generation of our children that we might not ever repair. So that's a long way of going down that chain into of why asking is important and why needing help is important and it's okay. And I'm going to go one step further, another thing that I want to talk about, because I think this is all the context of why it's hard for us. I saw a documentary about Ram Dass, and it's called Going Home. And it was filmed during the end of near the end of his life. And Ram Dass is a spiritual teacher. And what I loved about this is he is very self-aware and able during the documentary to talk about his experience as he's having it. And so end of life is hard. It's a lot of losing that power and control that I've been referring to and relying on others and being vulnerable and being actually needy and literally weak. And so that you have to rely on others. And he's a spiritual teacher and he's extremely enlightened. And also he's angry and he's frustrated. And he's showing us what it's going to look like at the end of life. And when I saw that, I was like, first of all, it's incredibly moving. I didn't like tear up watching it or like cry a little bit. I was sobbing watching this. It's really, really moving. And it reminds us of what humanity looks like. Like this is the condition, the human condition, and we're going to be there if we're lucky enough to live a long life. We're just going to need people. And I feel like it's the kind of thing that we might want to get good at doing right now. And that's why I wanted to talk about asking for help. I didn't want to say, hey, could I have your advice about this? I wanted to talk about asking for help of like, I need something and it's something that either I can't do or I would like you to help me do. And that's a different kind of advice to ask for. And it's hard because it's risky. And it's risky for all the reasons that I've just laid out. So how can we do that in ways that are acceptable? So one more thing that I want to talk about is the kinds of the nuance of asking. So we can ask, when we ask, like, for example, I'll ask my team for ideas. We had a little kind of a party where we come together, just like a monthly lunch kind of thing where we came together, and I asked them, I split them into kind of breakout rooms to ask them to talk to each other. And when they came back, one of the things that they said to me was like, we want to have more context about the work that we're working on. And I thought that was amazing. And we want to contribute to our ideas to what's going on. I had not thought to ask that, well, to give them more context. And I hadn't thought to ask all of them for more help and more input. And I loved that they sought that from me and they wanted to do that. And so I introduced that as the idea, like, people do want to help you, and your team members very often like would like to contribute more, and they want to know the bigger picture of what's happening. That was lovely for me to know, and I'm excited to start doing that with them. I think when we ask our colleagues about if they can help us on projects or engagements, it's an invitation for collaboration. It's also it also allows you to, like, you do you, and then you have somebody else who comes in and does something else. One of the first times that this really, as an idea, occurred to me, we were doing a spiritual retreat with a bunch of friends, and everyone was like dividing up, like, who's going to do meals and who's going to do other stuff. And I learned there for the first time that some people don't like to cook for other people. That was a big surprise to me. So there was a woman who had her grown sons had just left the house. And so she described cooking as like 21 meals a week, which, now that I think about it, if you have 2 grown sons and this big husband, they're all very tall, lumberjack kind of guys. I was like, oh, well, no wonder it was hard on her to do all this cooking. I love to cook, and I love to cook for people who love to eat. And so I was like, I'll take all the cooking jobs at this. And it made me realize some people hate to do the thing that you love to do, and some people love to do the thing that you hate to do. Enter bookkeepers. Like, aren't there people who are like, I would love to do bookkeeping all day long? And I'm like, yay, because I would love to meet people who would love to do bookkeeping all day long. So to me, this is, when you ask for help, you allow somebody to do a thing that they love to do, and to take off your hands a thing that you hate to do. So it's really super fun when you can find what those things are. So I do try, when I meet someone who does something like that, to be like, oh my gosh, could you do that for me? That would be amazing. And then there's strategic asking for help. It can be dicey when you have clients to ask them for help. And I'm going to tell you a way that, especially in terms of like looking for credibility and things like that, one of the most important things that we have to do as consultants is get buy-in when we're working with clients. And I've gone before into an organization where I was brought in by the owner, and then there's like the right-hand person to the owner who's like, who are you and why are you here? So a lot of times we have to create an ally of that person. So there was a gal, Sherry, who worked as the right-hand woman for the owner who brought me in. And she was protective of him, and she hadn't been a part of the buying process of him bringing me in. But when I got a chance to have a conversation with her, I realized she just wants the best for him. And she wants to make sure I'm not there to take advantage of him and just like grab the money and go. So I got to enlist her support, right? Ask her for help, like, help me, help you, this company, help make him a lot more money, take work off of his plate, like make things easier for him and help the company to grow. And by the way, while I'm here, we'll help you in your job, because one of the things that you're going to learn, because what I do is I help my clients, they increase the value. So yes, I help them grow their businesses, but they're increasing the value of the business. And so on an individual level, I'll almost always tell the person, I'm going to teach you how to talk about your value as well. So probably you'll get a raise. So I'm enlisting the support of team members of my clients to help me succeed in the work, right? So the vulnerability of this is, I actually need you. I'm so glad that you're protective of your boss, because I also am protective of your boss. I want this to work. And I'll need you to help me. Like, what do I need to know about him to make sure that this works? What do I need to know about the organization? Like, making an ally of that person can really, really help you succeed. So I did it with Sherry, who is a right-hand woman, in one situation with a client. And then I worked with a bank once, and I did this with the whole staff, like the tellers, the bank tellers, and the other people who worked in the bank, the vice presidents. Again, I was brought in by a person and a few of the other high-level leaders. But then there are other people in the organization who can tank the work if they want to. So I did that, basically that kind of asking campaign with a lot of them individually to say, hey, I actually need your help. This won't succeed if you aren't bought into it, if you don't want it to. Like, you have the power to take the whole thing down. And I want to make sure that you know why this is actually good for you, for the whole thing to succeed. It's a little more work on your plate. We're going to have a few more meetings. But here's why this is actually a good thing for you and for the organization as a whole. And so can I count on your support when we have the meeting? Would you do me a favor in that meeting? And would you ask a question? Doesn't really matter what it is, but if you would help other people maybe feel more comfortable in that meeting, if you would just like ask the first question, perfect. Thank you so much. So those are ways that we're asking for help in a strategic way with a client. And it is being vulnerable because, of course, that person can be like, who are you? And like, what are you doing? And they can be like, go back to the boss and be like, that person she was asking me these weird questions and I didn't feel comfortable about that. So we do have to be careful about how we're doing it. I'm always doing it sincerely. I'm not doing it in some sort of conniving survivor coalition building way. I'm really doing it in the highest good of the engagement and the client and the brand. That's the way that I consider that I'm doing the work. But I always want to make sure that that coalition building is done with strategic vulnerability and strategic asking. The last thing that I wanted to refer to here is the idea of self-care. I'm wanting you to ask for help for self-care reasons so that you aren't doing too much, that you can ask others to take stuff off your plate to help you, to support you. And why is that important? Why is it important to take care of ourselves? Well, because you can't sustainably do everything yourself. It's just not sustainable. And you can't be more efficient when there's just so much stuff. I have referred with my clients constantly to this image, and I'll find the graphic and add it to this episode if you're watching the video version, and I'll try to link to it in the show notes if we can. But sometime over the pandemic years, I saw a tweet, and it was a picture of the Big Rocks jar. I may have mentioned this on here before. I'm not sure. I keep talking about it, and I'm going to keep talking about it. The idea is that, you can't put all the rocks in the jar. I have definitely talked about it. You have a jar, and the famous motivational speakers will say, if you put the sand in and then the pebbles and stuff like that, then you don't have any room for the big rocks. And then the tweet was, yeah, well, right now they're all big rocks. And so you, like me, I know it's all big rocks now. We've edited out, by this point in our lives and in our success, we've edited out all of the crappy pebbles. And we don't have any medium-sized rocks because everything right now is a priority. And the things that are a priority are like family, business, this project, this church, or this community piece. Like the rocks are all huge. And it's just a matter every week of like, what just don't get to? To me, it's critical that one of the big rocks is you and is your way of taking care of yourself. I think we try to get more efficient. We try to get more productive so that we can get more done. And the fact is, you can't out-efficient your way out of there's just too many big rocks. You can't be more productive, more time productive when there's just everything is a priority. So you do have to say no to tons and tons of things. And you do have to decide, like, these are the things I'm going to focus on. And something, maybe it just has to wait until next year. So to me, the self-care piece of this is really critical. Two aspects of the self-care. One, we teach people how to treat us. And I think when you ask for help, You're teaching them, oh, wow, maybe I don't pile everything on her now. I can actually take something off of her plate. Oh, okay, cool. So you're teaching people you're not invulnerable. Imagine that. You're teaching people, I don't want to carry everything. You're teaching your family, your friends, your team members, your clients, your colleagues, the people who work with you in your business. You're teaching everyone around you, oh, she needs help too. And that's okay. That's an important thing for them to learn. Thing two, you're also modeling that for other women. You're modeling that for the women who see you, and you're modeling that for your daughters and also your sons, the other people in your life. You're modeling that it's okay to ask for help, because it is. Now, you might have, like I many years ago had this idea of no, it isn't okay. Let's all evolve on this. Let's evolve and realize it's okay to ask for help. And I want to challenge you, actually, push even further on what you do ask for help with, because you'll be amazed. The thing I love about the end of life things, and the thing that I have learned to, that has helped me relative to my family and other people who are not good at asking for help and are not really good at receiving help, you give others a gift when you allow them to help you. You actually do something nice for them. And I think there's even research on the altruism, the feeling of giving, selflessly giving is good for people. Let people help you. Because when you do that, you are actually doing a nice thing for them. It's helping them to help you. So if only for that reason, let people help you. It models that receiving, and be a gracious receiver of other people's help. So sometimes now, even when I don't need help, I will graciously receive it. Today, there was a heavy box at the post office, and a nice guy next to me, who was kind of an older guy, and I thought, oh, it seems like I should be carrying this box, offered to carry the box to my car. And I said, thank you. I would love it if you would carry that box to the car. Let's be gracious in receiving. He did a nice thing. He gets to feel great about himself. I felt great about him. I felt great about myself, because I knew that my first instinct was to say, oh, no, that's okay. I've got it. Let's let people help us. Let's let people take the difficult things off your plate. There are many people you can ask for help. And there are many things that you can ask for help with. You can ask for feedback on your brand. You can ask someone to appear on your podcast. You can ask if you can be on their podcast. You can ask, can you help me with this task because it's hard and I can't figure it out? Can you help me make a decision because I'm not sure what I need to be considering? Can you help me by moving this meeting? Can you help me by picking that up at the store because I don't have time to? So my challenge for you is I want you to think about what you can ask for help with, what you tend to say no to help with, and how you can stretch yourself in that area. So if you're already good at this, I want you to think about more and more and more how you can ask for help and how you can help the others around you. If you really rock at this, help the others around you to do this better. If this is a challenge for you, as it is for me, where I'm still, every day I'm working on getting better at it, I want you to expand who you ask for help with. Find someone on your team and ask them to help you with something that you feel like I could probably do it, but just ask for help with it. Ask your spouse or partner for help with something. Can they take on something that would make things easier for you? Let's teach them how to treat you. Ask your family. I'm not giving parenting advice because I don't know anything about raising children, but I have a feeling that asking kids for help will turn them into better grown-ups. So I would love to hear your feedback on this. I would love to hear how you do with asking for help. If this is a area of skill for you and you rock at it, or if, like me, you came from a background of self-sufficiency and you've really, really, really had to evolve and grow in this area. Either way, I would love to hear it. You can find me on all the socials. And as always, I'm wishing you a profitable and joyful consulting business.